On air. Oh, we're live. All right. Welcome everyone to our latest episode of the Electrek Podcast. We have a special show this week because it's not only myself, Fred Lambert, editor-in-chief of Electrek, and Seth Wintraub, the founder and editorial director of Electrek. We also have our contributor, Jameson Dow, with us today. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
So it was a big week for Jamie this week because he published our review of the Model 3. So that was a very anticipated review since Jamie got his car last month, and they've been putting as many miles as possible on it to gain some experience. And the review dropped on Monday, I think. On Monday.
You got the car last week, wrote the review over the weekend, and we dropped it Monday. And It was quite popular. I know. I was reading every word of it.
Yeah, it was very popular.
And it took you until today to finish it, right?
Yeah, 7,000 word review too. But it was popular with the Electrek readers, over 800 comments, I think, something close to that. People were quite excited about it, quite thorough. And I think it's fair to say that it was a positive review. You like the car, right?
I really like the car. Yeah, it's a great car.
And you're somebody who's got, a long history with Tesla. Obviously, you worked at Tesla. You've had a Roadster for quite a while. You've driven Model S and Model X, I'm assuming. So, as far as Teslas are concerned, is this kind of like another evolution forward? Because we saw the Roadster to the Model S was kind of a big leap. Is this another big leap, or is this kind of like a smaller leap and you're saving a lot of money kind of leap?
It's interesting because Tesla is trying to say that this car isn't the next generation car. It's not the improvement over the Model S, but in my opinion, yeah, exactly. But in my opinion, it's an improvement over the Model S. And I think that if they want to sell Model S's starting in like a year, once the backlog has been worked through a little bit, they're going to have to refresh the Model S quite significantly because, but that's about time for that. It's 7 years into the model's existence, since it started shipping in 2012. So 2019 would be a good time to come out with sort of a new Model S, like a whole new redesign of it.
Right. I think Fred and I were talking about that like right after our test rides, where like the Model S is in trouble. This is not, a $40,000 less capable car. This is like a couple $1,000 maybe at the most.
Well, I mean, it's, the Model S still has benefits over it. The performance, it does have more space and more usable space because of that big hatchback. You can put 7 people in it if 2 of them are kids. People do like bigger cars. It's got a bit of a smoother ride, but I think the Model 3 as a car is just a lot better. Just everything seems more complete. It seems like it's really coherent. It handles great. I love driving it. The user interface seems better and way faster, which is awesome.
Interesting.
Does
the web browser actually work?
There's no web browser, which is fine because the web browser did not work in the Model S. The other thing is that it's not just Teslas that I've driven. I mean, I have a Roadster, but I started with an electric car with the Mini E, and which was in 2009. There only made 450 of them that got released across the country. And that was definitely like a very experimental vehicle. I said this in my review that was an experimental vehicle, but it was still very useful for us. And my whole family drove it. And it was a really convenient car to have. We loved it. We used it more than any other car in the house. We would wait around in the house if someone was out with the Mini E, and we would wait for it to come back so that we could go and do whatever we wanted to do instead of taking another car because we loved it that much. So
that's interesting.
And that was just an experimental, like 1 year sort of retrofit car, and it was already really great. So we've done several steps forward in the electric car industry since then. And the cars are just getting better and better and better. And now we have a car that's really fantastic, so much better, 4 generations down the line or whatever, so much better than the weird little roadster that I have. But I'm really happy with how quickly all of this has been shaping up and how great these cars are getting. And I've driven a lot of other electric cars too, and I make it a point to drive every electric car I can, just so that I can know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you driven the entire like new generation that people almost talking about right now with the Nissan Leaf, the new Leaf. You had a review on that a few months ago. Have you had experience with the Bolt EV too?
I have, but not as much as with the Leaf or the Model 3. I've only driven it like in a test drive setting, but I've ridden in it. I've done a lot of research on it, so it's a great car, but the Model 3 is better.
Yeah, that was my next question, but I think we all already knew the answer of that.
Before we get to fanboy, because that's going to be easy for us to do, maybe we should talk about some of the problems, up front that early models are having. I know the one of the cross country vehicles, Fred, you interviewed Yo-Yo. There was a problem with the charging latch. And Jamie, did you say you had a similar problem?
So it's a problem, but it's not much of a problem. For us anyway, what happens is when you open up the app, it says charge port open, but the charge port isn't open. So you can't open the charge port from in the app. But what I've done is I just go up to the charge port and I touch it with my finger anyway, and it opens up. So, and I'm already there. If I'm going to be opening, if I'm going to be plugging in the car, that's where I need to be. So, it's a bug, but it doesn't actually affect the user experience that much. There have been other bugs that have affected the user experience. Just yesterday, I went out to the car and the screen wouldn't turn on. I had that happen before, and it took like a few seconds to turn on. This time, it took longer than I wanted it to, so I held down the steering wheel buttons to reset the screen.
So basically, it's like my iMac. Like I come back from sleep, and sometimes I move the mouse around, and there's nothing. So I just hit the power button.
Oh, well, mine doesn't do that.
Well,
yeah. So I think there's still some bugs that need to be worked out. I think most of them will be software fixable. The one major bug that we have is the rear defroster isn't working. And we need to bring it in for service. That's like a hardware bug.
Is that something that you even use in California?
Yeah, it's been super cold here lately. It's gotten down to like 50 degrees at night.
Oh.
No, it was like really foggy over the New Year's weekend. So I was trying to use it and it just wasn't working at all. So, so we need to fix that. But yeah, it is true. We don't use it very often in California.
Yeah, we have a question here that I think from Brian Stringfellow wants a comparison for the regenerative braking between the Model 3, the Bolt, and might as well throw the Nissan Leaf in there. So that's something that I find interesting, because when I had my quick test drive, I thought that it was a little bit weaker than I was used to with the Model S. What's your impression on that?
Yeah, I think it's a little weaker than a lot of the dual motor Model S's. It's about the same, maybe a little bit weaker than the single motor rear wheel drive Model S. It is weaker than the Bolt with the maximum regen setting. I think that Chevy really got regen like almost perfect with the Bolt, and I think they have the best fueling system. Now, keep in mind, the Mini E that I first drove is famous for being like the hardest regen of any electric car like ever. So I'm always trying to compare to that, and it's a little bit hard.
It's interesting. Maybe we should do like some sort of test where you're going 60 miles per hour, and then you just let your foot off the brake and see how many seconds it takes with on a flat surface with full regen,
right?
How long it takes to stop, and in various cars. That would be kind of an interesting electric car comparison.
Yeah, I know.
Just between us three, we have a few test vehicles to put it, but Region's also affected by the temperature, so that's a problem.
Right.
If you do the test of the Model 3 in California, instead you do the one with the Bolt in New York, we're gonna have some bad data, I think.
Right.
Yeah, he's on a frozen lake or something like that. Well, it never stopped. What happened?
Yeah, no, but I think it was an interesting point because everyone went kind of a different way, and the Bolt really I do enjoy. But when you said that it's stronger with just the IS setting, you don't mean the IS setting and the how do you call it, the
Paddle.
the paddle, yeah.
Right. The paddle. Yeah, so I think maybe the highest setting in the Bolt without the paddle is still even just a tiny bit stronger than the Model 3.
Yeah, I can get down
but
that.
you said the Model 3 is less than the Model S, right? A regen?
So the thing is with the Model S, I feel like the AWD, the all-wheel drive versions are a little bit stronger than the rear-wheel drive versions. And so the most time I've had in a Model S has been, well, let's see, I feel like the all-wheel drive is a little bit stronger than in the excuse me.
I'm just saying if because I know for a fact that the Model S doesn't have nearly as much regen as the Bolt, even without the paddle, or the Model X. So if the Model 3 is even softer on regen than the Model S, then it's going to be a lot less than the Bolt.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, the Bolt is definitely the strongest, especially with the paddle. But I think even on just the highest setting without the paddle, it's still a little bit stronger.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the Bolt, like, somebody can brake in front of you, and you just take off the thing and hit the paddle, and you're probably going to hit a stop within seconds.
Yeah, it's crazy. I like it. I like it a lot. The Leaf also, I should throw this in there. The Leaf e-pedal does feel good. And it does come to a complete stop. That's another thing that the Model 3 doesn't do, is that if you have creep turned off, which I do, and you try to come to a complete stop with the regen on standard, which is the higher setting, it won't really come to a complete stop. It'll kind of slow you down until you get to like 4 or 5 miles an hour, and then it'll just let you roll to a stop, which takes forever. I mean, not forever, but the deceleration reduces when you get down to 4 miles an hour or so. Whereas with the Bolt and with the Leaf, they both apply a little bit of either negative torque to the motor or friction brakes or something to get that last couple miles an hour so that you brake at sort of a more consistent come to a stop speed. It's a little bit jarring the first time you try it in the Leaf or the Bolt, but once you get used to it, I think it's probably a little bit better than the way that the Model 3 does regen, because then you just don't even need to reach for the brake pedal at all, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, what they call it one-pedal driving.
Yeah, Nissan definitely went a step further with their marketing of it, where everybody else is kind of like, it regens, but Nissan's like, well, this whole new thing that we invented. But really everybody has.
Yeah, Chevy did the same with the Bolt. They marketed it as one-pedal driving for a while with the paddle. No, for sure you can do that in the Model 3, but you can't really do it in Model S too. Like, you have to apply the brake at some point with the Model S too. If we move to something else in terms of the interior, how do you adapt to the center screen when you're driving with?
If anything, I mean, another thing with the Mini E, which I keep coming back to, is it actually had the instruments in the center also. It had the speedometer in the center of the car, and in front of you was just a charge indicator. In the standard Mini, it's a tachometer, but you don't need that on an electric car. So that kind of prepped me a little bit for the idea of having a center instrumented car, and it's not that hard to get used to. All the stuff you really need is as close to your eyes as you would otherwise have them if it was in front of you, in front of the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
You're either looking out and then down a little bit, or you're looking out and then to the side a little bit, but at this, it's about the same angle that you're looking. So
do you find the extra, since there's no instrument cluster in front of you or to the left of you, do you find that you have extra visibility there?
I don't think it actually improves the front visibility at all, because usually the cluster is below the line of the dash anyway. But It is kind of nice because sometimes what happens is when you have the steering wheel and your head in the position that you want it to be in, the steering wheel will cut off the instruments that are in front of you, and you kind of have to adjust the steering wheel so you can look through it
that's a
to
good
see
point.
the instruments. But you don't have to do that when it's off to the side, which is kind of cool. And in terms of front visibility, the Model 3 has incredible front visibility. You can see everything. It's amazing. The rear visibility is not that great,
so
though.
good. Right. So why is that? Is that because of the design of the rear glass, or is there something else?
Yeah, so the sloping rear glass, which is a aerodynamic thing, they want to slope it as much as they can to try to get the best aerodynamics they can. But also, I think that they may have raised the trunk lid a little bit because of the input that people got during the original unveiling event.
Right, and Elon said they were going to change the design a little bit because of the feedback, and so they raised that a little bit. It sounds like.
Yeah, I haven't confirmed that. I didn't, measure it beforehand and then measure it afterwards. But it stands to reason that if they did redesign the trunk opening by lifting the trunk lid, that might be why the rear visibility leaves a little bit to be desired. The workaround that I've done is I usually sit pretty low with my seat, and I've raised the seat up more than I would have otherwise, because there's a ridiculous amount of headroom in the car. So I've raised the seat up higher than I normally would because it gives me a little bit better angle to look out the rear of the car. It's still not fantastic visibility, but I don't know. Hopefully the car can drive for itself and I won't have to look back there.
Yeah. Do you ever use the camera? I know I do sometimes, because most cars you don't get access to the rear camera unless you're in reverse. But Tesla allows you to look at the rear camera anytime you're driving, and you can use it like a rear view mirror. Do you find that you do that?
You can. I don't, though.
It makes me a little seasick.
Yeah, it's a little weird. And the other thing is the backup camera is actually not as good on the Model 3 as it was on the Model S. It's a little more fisheye, which means that things look further away. And then also the quality seems perhaps not as good as the Model S quality was.
Yeah, that's something that you mentioned in the review that I found interesting, especially after this week, later in the week, after I read the review, I got a 90D and my car went into service, and I got a Model S 90D, and I think that change in the camera went later because I found the 90D camera, so that was a 2017 Model S 90D. I thought it was worse than my P85 from 5 years ago. I thought it was a little bit slower, so like really just a fraction of a second, so something like that. But just that can make a difference when you're backing. But also the fisheye effect is much stronger on the more recent Model S than it is on my PD5.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, I definitely haven't compared other Model S's, older to new, to see what the difference is, but I suppose that's certainly a possible.
Yeah, so based on your comment on the Model 3, I think that they probably have in the most recent Model S the same camera that they have in the Model 3, probably for the backup camera or something. But so what you find to be worse than in the Model S is probably like older Model S, like my camera that I have.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that from other people too, that they feel like the Model 3 camera is a little bit worse than the Model S, but those could be people who have older Model S's and haven't seen the new.
That's what I'm thinking.
So have you supercharged at all, Jamie?
We one supercharge. The car didn't necessarily need it. It was at like 50%. Right upon plugging in, it was getting 80 something kilowatts. I've heard other people who've gotten up to 100 or so kilowatts. And but at 80 something kilowatts, it was charging at a rate of 290, I think, miles per hour, which is plenty. Right. And then it throttled down pretty quickly from 80 something to, I think, 68 or something, even though the car was at about 50%. So
was it a crowded supercharger or?
Nope, only car the supercharger.
That's interesting. Yeah. I usually, like, if conditions are perfect and the car's almost empty, I can get close to 120 kilowatts in the Model 90 Model X. So about halfway, I'm definitely under 100 kilowatts. So that sounds kind of like similar to what I've heard or what I've seen. It would have been a nice surprise if it, was higher than 120 or 100, whatever.
Yeah, it would have. And I mean, it's entirely possible that either the car can charge faster or that it will eventually get some sort of upgrade to charge faster. But, it's the nice thing is, since the car is like 30% more efficient almost than the Model S is, that you can charge it at the same rate and get 30% more miles. Or
yeah.
So the difference between a 90 kilowatt charge on a Model 3 or a 120 kilowatt charge on a Model X is, in terms of miles per hour, is about the same.
Yeah, I noticed that when I did the Hyundai Ioniq review, even just plugging the Ioniq into a wall, I've never gotten over 5 miles per hour of charge plugged into a 120 in the US. And this one was like 6 or almost 7 miles per hour of charge just from the wall, because the Ioniq is like 136 miles per gallon E, or really efficient. I think more efficient than even the Model 3. So that's something that people don't really consider. Like, even your normal 240 charge is going to be much quicker in miles terms.
Yeah, miles per hour. In terms of, we're going to switch to something that's more actual with what happened yesterday. We're going to talk about the interior of the Model 3. So considering you got one of the first, probably like 2,000 cars, so something like that in first.
Something like, yeah.
Alcantara.
So that's going to be one of the few Model 3 that has a full Alcantara interior, as we understand now, because Tesla updated the interior this week with a new textile, and it pissed off a lot of people. If you look at the forums threads and and Reddit and stuff. So, well, first off, how do you like the interior with the Alcantara?
Well, should I talk about how great it is? Or?
It's horrible.
Yeah, it sucks. It's
itchy.
So hard to clean. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it really does look nice. I've gotten a lot of good comments. My friend who's a BMW mechanic got in it the other day, and he was looking at it, and he's like, "Wow, this is like high-end BMW stuff." So, lots of praise, but I guess not anymore.
Yeah. So the thing is, well, I personally, like I wrote in my article about it, I think the biggest issue was like the people thought they were getting Alcantara, and then when they took delivery, they didn't have it on the headliner. So that's a real problem. Tesla clearly didn't communicate the change properly. If at least they would have, even if the delivery specialist or the owner advisor, whoever's in charge of the account, called the person and said, "Hey, by the way, there was a change. We have a problem. Just letting you know," and everything. I think that would have smoothened the transition a lot better.
Yeah, but nobody wants to make that call, because you don't want to have that crazy customer who's going to be like, "Fuck you," but whatever.
Yeah, but anyway, or they could have just like not even a press release, maybe, or not. Sometimes they notify the media like, "Oh, we have a new interior for the Model 3," and try to sell the interior at least,
right?
Because so that it's very subjective. Like Alcantara is like you said, for BMW and for other premium automaker, that's like the standard brand that they use for the interior. But there are plenty of other material that are subjectively just as good or even better than the suede-like finish of the interior. Because like if you look at the Model 3, which is often compared like Audi A4 and Audi A4 and a BMW 3 Series, I've seen almost the exact same new textile interior in those cars. Looks just fine too. So it's subjective. If you look at the threads right now, it looks like it's the Alcantara is more popular so far. But I think that's also part of the communication issue. If it was communicated more efficiently, I think it would have been an issue with the style itself. Don't know if you guys agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much right. The one thing I'll note is I think that the Model S, I mean, it's gone through a lot of different iterations, but I think either the current Model S or the Model S from not too long ago was a has that same textile interior on the roof, and it's fine. I didn't think that I would care, but on the Model 3, I really do like the interior that it has. So, it sucks a little bit to have done that change without really communicating. But then again, the website never said that premium update package includes Alcantara. It's just that we expected it to, because the premium update cars came with Alcantara. People saw the pictures and said, oh, okay, that's what the premium update looks like. And Tesla probably should have said, like, okay, we're going to change this at one point.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the premium package, since it mentioned premium materials, people assume that include the headliner, but premium materials could just as well be the seats and other trims on the car, and not the headliner.
Yeah, but why did they do that? Like, why don't they just do the Alcantara? Like,
yeah,
is it that expensive? They're running out of it or something? I don't know.
I doubt that. It's like some people are asking, like, it should be a discount for the premium textile. I didn't find any indicator that the premium textile is actually cheaper than Alcantara, and we have to be careful too, because the Alcantara is a brand name. It's not the actual. Tesla never confirmed to me that it's the actual Alcantara brand that they use for the suede-like interior that we saw in the first few Model 3, the same as Jamie has. So it's not necessarily that. So we don't have any information that's actually more expensive or cheaper, but and we don't have even indication that it's especially for the premium package either. So it's not about that. Some speculation on Reddit about or TMC, I think it was TMC, about being a supplier issue. I asked Tesla about that too, and they didn't confirm it. Instead, they just said that it was already planned ever since they did the change for the Model S and X too. So that makes more sense, since they changed it for the Model S and X. Then some people tried to deny that based on the fact that the new Model 3s that are coming out still have Alcantara or Alcantara-like material on the visors, on the mirrors. Well, I wouldn't. I don't get on board on that being an indicator that's actually a change of supplier problem. It might just be that they had plenty of those, and they didn't match the change for the headliner with the visor, so they just combining the two until they ran out of visor. Then it's gonna change the material there too. So that's not really a real indicator in my opinion. But they said that it was to match the change that they did with the Model S and X. And the problem with Model S and X versus Model 3 right now is that if you custom order an S and X, since they have bundled the interior packages, it's been a lot murkier in terms of what you get. Like, you see it online, but it's not perfect. So apparently there are still a few of those interior bundles that you can get with Alcantara-like headliners, but they are apparently switching those increasingly to the new textile, premium textile, whatever they are calling it right now.
Yeah, the other weird thing is, if they were gonna do that, and if they planned it, why did they even bother to make the first 2,000 cars with the Alcantara-like headliner, and not just say, okay, well, let's just make them all with this new cloth stuff, and that way we don't change midstream. Literally, while we're still having tons of production problems and trying to build up production, why are we making this change? The whole point of the Model 3 right now is to have exactly one configuration coming off the line. And there really is, if you think about it, there's exactly one configuration right now, and then they paint it. And that's the only difference. And then they put wheels on it, but you can put whatever wheels on whatever car you want. So it's literally every car is exactly the same before the paint goes on. So it's bizarre that they would change something when the whole point is to make it.
I mean, that maybe they're being legit and there was actually production problems. Like maybe, it wasn't stretching right, or it was coming apart or something.
Yeah, of course.
So, maybe take it at face value. They're like, man, this is not going to work. Well, let's do something else, and now we can make more of them and faster. So,
and we did see a lot of this kind of stuff in the early days of the Model S. There were a lot of weird cars. I saw a car that they had a tech package that included a bunch of different upgrades, and I saw a car that had had not ordered the tech package, but it had like half of the tech package upgrades because they were just like, well, whatever. We already started putting them on this car, so just go ahead and ship it like that.
You know,
So,
I got an update one time when I was at the dealer. I didn't have the tech package, but all of a sudden I was able to use the tech package. You know, the like navigation system on my
Right.
older one, and then it kind of just broke down. And then I called them up and was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And they're like, "Update it again," and then it just went away. So I don't know. A lot of weird stuff going on over there.
Yeah. Well, I think we can all agree that there was a big of an overreaction, I think, on the Alcantara thing. Because it's like one of the least important part of the car.
Yeah, you're upsetting people right now.
No, I'm sure I'm upsetting people, but I don't care, because what I found interesting about it is like the fact that people cared so much about the headliner of a car, like that they went for a material to another for the headliner of the car, and it was such a big deal on on all the different platform that covers Tesla. I mean,
I like all the people who are saying, "Oh yeah, you know, the headliner is going to be so much easier to clean." Well, who's like throwing hamburgers on the headliner? Like, what the heck? It's like,
yeah,
you're going to eat in your car and eat up. Like, things drop down, not up. Like, come on.
I don't know if I've ever cleaned my headliner.
Yeah, the only thing that can get like, well, not necessarily dirty, but more like you see some wear on it. It's really at the when you enter the vehicle on the driver's side, like this part near the head, like people will grab their hand there often. So that's the thing that gets the more wear. But I have Alcantara material on mine, and that's where you see some wear. But other than that, doesn't get dirty or anything. So it's not really an issue. Well, the Mitch and Match is tacky. Mikey wrote on YouTube. Well, the only Mitch and Match right now is on the visor, on the mirror, on the top. So it's like you really have to open it to see the Mitch and Match. So, I mean, if that's a problem, then I don't think that the problem is with the car. The problem is with the person that sees this as a problem. But so online BS Space Gray. Yeah, you're right, Seth. I'm upsetting people. Looks like already in the comment section. Yeah, well, the main BS with this, I think, like I said, it's the communication part. Tesla could have smoothed the whole thing very easier just by, hey, by the way, we are updating the interior. This is a new interior. That's it. But my understanding where they didn't see a need for that is because they officially didn't have any car on display. Any type of information about the interior of the car or anything, so they didn't see a need for it because they never promised anything. So that was their excuse for it. Obviously, it didn't work. So it wasn't a good excuse. Now they have car on display since today. So the first two cars are on display in Los Angeles and in Palo Alto, and they have the new headliner. So now you know. So if you go see the car, you get what you see in the store.
Yeah. So okay. So let's leave that Alcantara now and move to the next. I mean, are we done talking about the Model 3 for this week, or should we?
Yeah, we can move to something else. Though we had other Model 3 news, I think, to cover this week. Did we? We had the Model 3 display. No, I think we covered everything from the Model 3 this week with
with the Alcantara as well.
Yeah.
And then, obviously they're on display, and you mentioned in Palo Alto and
yeah. So if you guys want to go see it, Century City Star and the Palo Alto Star, you can see it. But if we move to something else this week and talk about another article that was really popular and it surprised me. The last few articles on Fisker, on the new Fisker vehicle, were very popular for some reason. So people are interested in that. And this week with CES, there was the official unveiling of the EMotion. Henrik Fisker, the famous car designer, unveiled his latest vehicle under the relaunch Fisker automotive startup.
And you say this pretty often, Fred. The problem with Fisker is never the design of the cars.
Yeah, because it looks great.
Cars look amazing. Like, they're just gorgeous cars. Like, he designed the BMW Z. Early editions of the Model S, supposedly, although Tesla claims they threw out all his designs and started fresh, which I believe. And then obviously the Fisker Karma, beautiful car. And now the EMotion, which is, again, amazing, beautiful car. But what's inside? We don't know.
Yeah, well, the only problem with the design of the EMotion that I see right now is that it's on 24-inch wheels. So, I mean, are they going to deliver that? Are they going to deliver it on 24-inch wheel? Because any car looks great on 24-inch wheel, but it's still a bit oversized for actual use. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of vaporware around the car. Are they going to deliver it or not? It's going to be like that. The other thing that was interesting with the CES presentation is that they came out with the actual battery cell prototype for their new solid state lithium battery cell, which they claim can get you like 500, 600 miles of range on a charge, and it can charge in a minute or something like that.
I think they dropped that down to 400. Wait, so initially they were saying supercapacitors, right?
Yeah, the very first time that they came out of stealth mode with the company, they were talking about a sort of hybrid supercapacitor for the energy storage system in the car. They dropped that apparently completely of the plan within the startup, within the IP of the startup. Then they moved to that solid state battery, which is more something that's closer to automotive grade production at this point, but that was never in the plan for the actual first version of the car, as we understand it. Right. Which is a weird thing to do to start with. Like, it's awesome car that we're working on, and we have the awesome battery technology that we're working on, but that's not going to be in the first car. The first car is going to be just lithium cells that we're going to buy off the shelf at the LG, which is fine too, because a lot of startups are doing that, but they are sort of touting this new battery technology,
which they're working with MIT on. I think they said.
Was it? There might be a university partner, but it's within the company. It's like it's their own IP. They brought on the one of the founder of. I think you're confusing with the startup. Came out of was, if it's not MIT, it's Michigan State or something. It's a spin-off, a startup spin-off of a big university to create a startup about solid cells. They sold the startup, and one of the founder of that startup, on which their technology was based, went to work with Fisker. But now the IP is within Fisker. It's a new solid state technology. When they first talked about that solid state technology a few months back, they said that it was going to be ready in 2023. But this week they updated the timeline, and they said, we're going to have it in cell phones by the end of the year, maybe. They said probably, and actually 2020 for cars. So I don't know what happened within the last 3 months, but apparently they gained a few years in the roadmap to production. So like we said, big grain of salt on whatever they're saying, whatever is coming of Fisker, is we know we got burned the last time with the Fisker Karma and the old startup that went on there.
Yeah, and so Fisker this time around is not doing a hybrid, right? So they're just doing a battery electric.
Well, there is the Revero, which is the car they're currently selling, which is basically the Fisker Karma, only pretty much minor updates to have the Revero. So they're currently selling that, although I don't know how successful they've been at selling that. And
it's not called Fisker anymore. That is called Karma, right?
Yeah, that's called the Karma Revero, although it is very similar to the Fisker Karma.
Right.
I haven't driven it, but they did just open up a showroom near me, and I need to get down there and drive one.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
But that car is not so much different from the Fisker Karma. So, and it's old technology. It's not really competing against where we are now with Tesla and so on. So I'd much rather see what this EMotion thing is all about. And I feel like that's the direction things are going, rather than this Karma Revero. I think they're just trying to sell what they have out of what parts are left over from last time or something.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting what's evolving in the EV world, because Tesla's obviously this big thing in the middle, and you have the Fiskers of the world who are trying to, even more expensive cars, or like that Corvette we saw today, even more expensive, a little bit faster on the high end, and then you have the less expensive cars like the Leaf and the 80 milers on the low end, but nothing is really in Tesla's wheelhouse spec-wise that they can't, overcome. I think a good example is Faraday. Like they came out with the FF91. They had like specs a little bit faster than the Model X, and a couple updates later, it got beat.
Yeah,
and we also haven't heard the price of the FF91 yet.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever will.
Oh yeah, the rumors were crazy about the price. It went like for 200,000 to 300,000, something like that, which doesn't make sense. But they, since the beginning, they were talking about some kind of subscription ownership type of deal where you just pay per month or something. But we don't see how that thing can work out.
Yeah, $10,000 a month, maybe.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense. But in CES, we also got to see the Biden that came out of Future Mobility Corp, which is another Chinese money backed EV startup, which is kind of international, but it's mostly based in China. And they showed their first production intent vehicle, an electric SUV that gets over close to 323 miles of range on a single charge, they say. But that's going to be the bigger version. So it's going to start with a 71 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is going to get probably around 250 range, or maybe something like that. Something closer to what we see with a Model S, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a nice car. It looks really good. I think the standout feature is probably the dashboard.
Yeah,
that kind of wraps around screen.
They put crazy biggest screen that you have ever seen in a car before.
I think what they did is they probably took a one of those 1080p displays and just cut it up, because it's like 65-inch TV, kind of wide, and it kind of wraps around in a curved way. It looked like. So that'll be cool. I think that'll be something if it comes to market.
Well, it has some autonomous features in mind. So if you get to eventually fully autonomous, you want some good screen real estate to put some content in, because they say that they are aiming for level 3 at launch, which is in 2019, and then move to level 4 autonomous driving in 2020, which is in line with a lot of other startup timeline for autonomous driving. So that's not impossible, depending on and we know that there's a lot of consolidation right now in within autonomous driving space, where companies are partnering up with each other to develop the technology. So it's not like they're gonna do it on their own. The screen is actually 49-inch, so that's like the it's similar to the
Samsung.
the large Samsung curved display that they have. So it's similar size too. You don't see a lot of displays like that with the height too, 10-inch of height. And it's a good size. It's maybe something like that we're gonna see to compete with the upcoming Tesla Model Y. I think that's a similar segment.
Right. It does have that kind of look about it. It's kind of like what do they call it? Crossover-ish, like small crossover.
Yeah. Compact SUV. I referred to it as a mid-luxury SUV at $45,000, which I think is about right. Now it's about whether they deliver on this or not. We've been burned before with EV startups. You just mentioned Faraday Future, and people are more optimistic, I think, about Lucid Motors. But they're still stocked too. Like, and they don't look as bad, because there's a lot of these stories coming out about them like not paying their suppliers and such, which is a good sign. I mean, like they have their shit together more than Faraday Future apparently, but they still don't have the money to build a factory. They announced the factory over a year ago now to be built in Arizona, and they did say when they announced the factory that it's still dependent on them closing a funding round, but I asked them like 3 or 4 times in the last year, so did you guys close that round? And they always say, no, we didn't close it. And they told me, "Yeah, we're gonna let you know when you close it." So if they didn't let me know, it sounds like they didn't. And that's like probably about a year late already. They were aiming originally for 2018 production, so I think that's not in the cards anymore. And Biden is looking for 2019, starting in China. Then they want to expand to Europe and the US by 2020. So it sounds like they want also to manufacture in China and export, which would be something new here for the US. Chinese car haven't really made it here yet, but they wouldn't be the first, because I think Volvo wants to do that too in 2019 with their new Chinese owners, Geely, I think they're called. Geely want to produce an all-electric Volvo in China and ship it to the US and other markets. So that's going to be an interesting turn of event if it actually pulled that through.
Yeah, I think I was really impressed when I saw the Lucid in their LA reveal, which was like almost a year ago now, I think. I was impressed by it, but that was just one reveal of one car. And I did talk to a lot of engineers and product people and got pretty deep into a lot of conversations. And I feel like they're in the right place, but it's a hard thing to do, to start an electric car company. And the thing that Tesla succeeded in is not only did they do everything right, they also got super, super lucky because they got a free factory, basically. So, yeah. These other companies are talking about building their own factories and they've got billionaires behind them, but so did Tesla. And all this stuff, there's a lot of stuff that's in the way of building an a car company, an electric car company, just anything. Obviously I hope all of these companies do well, because I get tired of just talking about Tesla when it comes to electric cars. But right now they're kind of the only game in town that's making a purpose-built electric car that's awesome, that's out there, and that's all they do. And they're not anti-selling it. I mean, they're anti-selling the Model 3, but they're not like trying to get people not to buy an electric car. Whereas, you go into a Chevy dealership or a BMW dealership and they're trying to sell you something with an engine in it. So we, I really want to see Faraday Future, Lucid, Byton, Geely, everybody have something awesome, but we need to get them on the road. One thing I like to say is you can't drive a press release. And I just am tired of looking at press releases or concept cars. I want to drive the car. I want people to own it. I want to see it while I'm driving around, because I live in Southern California and their electric cars are everywhere here. But we need them. We need real cars.
Well, that kind of brings us to the majority of auto executives still think battery electric cars will fail, survey says, story, which, man, is that depressing. We talked about that this week. Fred wrote the article on a KPMG study. And what was it, like 54% of global auto executives say that they believe that EVs will fail commercially due to infrastructure challenges, and 60% say excessive recharging times will do them in.
Which is ridiculous, because it takes seconds to plug in my electric car, and the infrastructure, literally right now, I'm within arm's reach of a place that I can plug in an electric car, and I'm not within arm's reach of a place that I can plug in a gas vehicle. Like,
well, the actual survey focused on the future of automotive industry, and so it's not really about EVs versus gas-powered cars, but it was mostly about EVs versus hydrogen fuel cell cars, which your argument applied to that too. You're not within reach of a hydrogen refueling station, but so still, if you look at the infrastructure problem of the EVs versus hydrogen, I don't get the argument at all, because it's the infrastructure of hydrogen is way more complicated to implement than EVs, because at least EVs, you have an existing grid. Like everyone has
it's more complicated than gasoline.
Yeah, it is, because it's like putting all the current infrastructure for refineries that you have all over the world for petroleum. You have a ton of refineries. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and you need to have the same for hydrogen. You need to make the hydrogen. You don't as much need to extract it, like you said. Like it's maybe not as complicated as petroleum, because you need to extract the petroleum, which is getting increasingly complicated and capital extensive, since we already extracted the easiest reserve. But for hydrogen, you need to normally you're gonna have a water source, and then you need to do like electrolysis, and then you need to store that, then you need to ship that, then you need to store it again to the place where you actually refuel. So extremely complicated infrastructure, extreme size of investment required for ultimately an energy storage system that is just about as good as it is right now for batteries, which is getting better every day too. So,
and less efficient than batteries in terms of the full cycle efficiency. And you mentioned that you don't need to extract it, but right now you do need to extract it, because 95% of the global hydrogen supply comes from fossil fuels. And I think that's why the auto industry and the oil industry are pushing hydrogen over electric, because they know that they've got a whole stack of hydrocarbons laying around, and they're like, well, hey, where are we going to get all this hydrogen from? Oh, well, I got some hydrocarbons over here, so why don't we just get it out of there? So they know that they still have a business if fuel cells exist. The oil industry does. And if electric cars succeed, the oil industry doesn't have a business. And then any allies that the auto industry has in the oil industry, they've worked together for so long that I can see why a lot of the old timer, middle level executives in the auto industry are aiming more for that.
But do they believe it? Like, do they genuinely believe that hydrogen's better or oil's better, or that these perceived problems with battery electric vehicles are going to prevent the widespread usage of it?
Well, Upton Sinclair said it's very hard to get someone to understand something when his paycheck depends on him not understanding it.
Right.
But the auto industry people, technically their paycheck don't depend on it. That's my thing for that argument of forget the quote, the argument itself that the auto industry would be behind hydrogen because it helps the fossil fuel industry. But the links between the fossil fuel industry and the automotive industry are not that obvious. There are some for sure, but the interest between them is not that obvious. But of course, I'm behind you with the theory, because it's the only one that makes sense, really.
Yeah.
The other thing is that you're just all dumb people, and there are dumb people everywhere too. So that has to account for a percentage of that 54%. But I want to believe that 54% of global auto executives are not idiots.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about like the people who build engines and repair and service engines. These are people that, I mean, I guess, you grow up around a technology and you understand the technology better than anybody else. You want that technology to continue to thrive, and you don't want like these new guys who understand this new technology coming in. But to me, it's like you just, I mean, clearly, obviously, look at Tesla and the wait for the Model 3. Like, that should be shaking some people. I don't know how it's not. But
so that's the thing with this study. So they're trying to reconcile the opinions of the auto execs with the fact that right now, even though a lot of it is just seen in press release right now, like you mentioned earlier, there's still a large investment from those major automakers into EVs right now. And a lot of them are even telling the public, we think EVs are the future of the industry. GM said that. GM said the future is electric. And right now, if you look at their investment strategy, it looks much bigger in the battery electric world than fuel cell hydrogen, even though they still have one or two hydrogen programs in the work. The KPMG surveys mentioned that, well, they gave a theory to explain that, saying that right now in the short term, battery electric vehicles are more of a bigger opportunity to adapt to the stricter vehicle efficiency standard. So they said that that's the reason why they're saying that, and they're investing in EVs. It's because they want to comply on the short term, and then later they're gonna come up with hydrogen, and hydrogen is gonna be the future, which is not a bad explanation because we have a good example of it with Hyundai, that the CEO outright said it, that they are only making battery electric vehicle until hydrogen takes hold and makes sense for passenger cars.
Which sucks because they actually make a really good battery electric car, the Ioniq, and there's a few more coming.
Yeah, well, that's where I don't see a problem, because it's probably never going to happen. So as long as they work on it, they keep working on the Ioniq, and they keep making it better, they're going to see the demand for it increase. And then they're gonna see like hydrogen just not moving. We see hydrogen not moving. Like there's millions of investment in the refilling station in California and Japan and those places. And like the Mare, the Toyota Mare, it's just the sales are incredibly poor, even though they keep reducing like the lease, because they can't sell the car at all. They can only lease it because no one wants to pay the sticker price for that thing. So they have
because nobody wants to buy a car that's not going to be serviced in 3 or 5 years, when
or that they can't fill up, because I'm in one of the only places in the entire country where you can fill up a hydrogen car, and that's the thing they say, oh, the benefit is it's shorter fueling up so you can go on road trips. Well, where to? There's no fueling stations. They're only in Southern California.
And you can't fill it up at home. You have to go to the filling station.
Yeah, there's like 8 of them in Southern California, like 5 of them in the Bay Area, 1 in Georgia, and 1 in Connecticut or something. That's it.
It's crazy.
So another thing I wanted to say about the auto industry and why they think this is, I think that part of it also, it's not just because of the ties with the oil industry. It's also because, and this was mentioned by Mark Tarpenning, one of the founders of Tesla, in a excellent YouTube video, which you can watch, which is like an hour long, and it's titled something like Mark Tarpenning Amplify Mentor Event. And it's really funny because he's standing in front of like a bathroom.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It's a great video, and part of it he talks about how the auto industry has outsourced so many aspects of their design, like pretty much everything, every bit of engineering that the auto industry does has been outsourced except for engine design. So the only intellectual property that the automakers own is they own the brand, they own the intellectual property that goes into engine design, and they own distribution and manufacturing networks. So they're good at building things, and they have a brand so that people will recognize them. But in terms of what they build, the only thing that they can build that nobody else can build is the engine. So they're afraid of electric cars, because then they lose their one piece of technology.
And that's why new companies can come in like Tesla, but also all these other startups we're seeing, EV startups. We only have a few minutes left. We should probably talk a little bit about the solar roof production start in Buffalo at Gigafactory 2.
Yeah, we can mention that quickly. Tesla finally confirmed this week that they moved the solar roof tile production, which was previously made at the pilot plant in Fremont. They moved that to the Gigafactory 2 in Buffalo, which should mean a significant increase in production in the short term, if all goes well, and result in more installation, because right now all the installation were only at the Tesla employees' homes. So at the same time, Tesla confirmed that they started a process for installation and for customers. So the pretty much the first customer is going to be the Tesla vehicle owners with the referral program, because you have like the solar roof token that you can get in the referral program, which give you an early installation, access to an early installation, which was supposed to be last summer. Didn't happen. So the early token now is not worth much unless they can use it for those first installation right now. So they said that the process started with the design survey, the site survey, design of the system, and soon installation if the permitting process work. But the first 2 types of tiles are entering production, so they're gonna be some bigger volumes to play with, and they're gonna get installations. Not big news other than that at this level, but I think since we still have a minute, we can talk about Seth experience updating his Chevy Bolt EV software this week?
Yeah, so at CES this week, the 9 to 5 Google guys were really hyped about Google Assistant coming to Android Auto. So basically, your Android phone makes it so like you have an Amazon Echo or Google Home in your car, meaning that you don't have to hit the button to talk to it, which is good because if you have 4 people in the car and somebody wants to play some music, they can just say, "Hey Google, I want to play this music," or whatever. So that's cool. I want to try it, but unfortunately, my Bolt and my Android phone haven't been doing well together for a long time since I got it. And what happens is every once in a while, it'll just stop. It'll come unconnected, but the phone still thinks it's connected, so I can't use it. So rather, to get it all right, I wanted to upgrade to the latest version of the Bolt software. How do you do this? Chevy kind of promised and touted that it has an OTA capability. But the funny thing is if you go through these forums, they're not upgrading cars via OTA. They're upgrading cars via USB port, which is how they've done it for, the last 20 years or 30 years. They're not doing via OTA. So rather than go into my dealer, I did the much stupider thing and downloaded this file from a Mega Upload account, put it on my USB stick, ran it out to my car, put it in the car, or started up the car, put it in the USB port, and it upgraded. It took about 12 to 15 minutes total, and I got the new version, which works much better with Android Auto. Not only does it stay in, but there's no black bars on the side. It was kind of letterbox before. And it works fantastically, and the Android Auto works. But a couple things that it brings up. One is the Bolt doesn't have its own mapping system. So if you don't have a phone that's working as a map, there's no way to map anything unless you want to use the Call OnStar service, which is a pay service. Perhaps one of the reasons why they have it. That's dumb. That should have its own internal system. We keep an old iPhone in the car in case we don't have something, and we plug it in if we need maps in an emergency situation. The other thing, the more important thing is, Chevy's touting or GM's touting this. We're going to be in autonomy as good as Tesla or Google or Uber or whoever. But how can you trust or how can you believe that they're going to be with these Silicon Valley behemoths who know software engineering when they can't even do an OTA update on the car? I mean, the Tesla Model S has been out since 2012, over 5 years. It's had OTA updates for 5 years. GM still to this day cannot do an OTA update on their, high-end car, which is the basis for their autonomous driving. I mean, come on.
Yeah, one thing I mentioned in my Model 3 review, and this is mean, and I apologize to any software engineers from Detroit listening to this, but, Tesla has the best software engineers of Silicon Valley, whereas Chevy has the best software engineers in Detroit. And where do software engineers go when they're the best software engineers? They go to Silicon Valley. So, that's the difference in software between the two cars, is that you have a company that has really good software skill and they're all nearby and they're building a car that can do all this stuff, whereas GM doesn't have access to that.
Well, I think that is true, technically. I'm not sure that's the source of the problem.
I think they have a California office too. GM does, but
yeah, they have probably, but in terms of size of a software team, it's probably still true. But I don't think that's the actual issue with the OTA updates. I think the OTA update is more like a politic issue. They want you to go to the dealership. They have a deal with the dealership that they are exclusive at servicing the car, and software updates are included in that exclusive partnership between the franchise dealership and the automaker. I think that's a big part of it too. So they are, in order to be able to offer OTA updates, I think that they have to work with the dealership to make a deal or something like that. So I think that's an issue too.
That's a sad state of affairs if that's the
Yeah.
case. Because I mean, autonomous is going to require tons and tons of updates.
Oh yeah, so there needs to be something to happen. So that's a big advantage for Tesla, that it's not technology based, but it's their business model, since they completely avoided the dealership and they take care of the service themselves. Then they are incentivized to fix things by software update, instead of having you bring the car in service where the time is worth more money. So I'm pretty sure that's the biggest issue with because of course, if you just bring it to the service and you plug the USB thing and the USB drive, and you make the update, like, it's not, you don't need to do it. It would have been easier, since you have to download in a third party website the actual software update. But they want you to come in just because they can charge the time to GM, even if it's they don't charge it to you because it's within your warranty or whatever.
Right. I mean, there's all that stuff behind the scenes. I mean, it would be nice, like, okay, so you can't do the OTA update for some reason. Like, give me a download from the GM site, or like what do USB sticks cost? Like $1 each. Like put it on a USB stick, send it in the mail or something. It's just really, like, the solution to upgrade is going to the dealer. And I actually, I live like 30 miles from a dealer. I could spend half a day going to do this. It's not a big deal. But some people live, a couple hours away. It's not good.
Yeah, but 30 miles from the dealer and spending half a day, like, that's really inefficient. Like, why don't you just press a button?
Right.
I mean, and that's going to be more efficient for everybody. It's more efficient for GM because they don't have the cost of having to pay the dealer and all that stuff, but they've got all these agreements with the dealers, like Fred pointed out. So, this is why you've got such a big company that's established. And this goes back to the whole auto executives thinking that electric cars aren't going to do well, is you've got a company that has an established way of thinking, and they can't change the way that, because they're too big. There's just too many people to go in and explain to all of them, this is what we're doing now, because they all have their own opinions and their own style of work that they've been doing their entire career, and they don't want to change any of that. And it's from the dealerships to the executives to the design people to the software people, there's just so many roadblocks to making a company better, in the case of GM and all these other incumbent automakers that are really huge.
Yeah, I mean, and I hate to say, like, again, I love the Chevy Bolt. It's a fantastic car. It's been super reliable otherwise, and I said that in the post. But it's more of like a wake-up call to GM. Like, you guys have to figure this stuff out. Like, you've got to, like, figure out what you're going to do. I mean, it's also about charging. They think that ChargePoint and EVgo and Greenlots are going to be able to make up for having a dedicated charging network, and it's clearly not the case. Like, you can't even drive from Los Angeles to Phoenix without charging at some camp out place for 6 hours. So there's a lot of wake up calls that need to happen in the industry, and even GM, who's kind of leading the electric vehicle charge among the established traditional automakers, that they need to kind of wake up to the realities of software, of charging infrastructure. And again, like, as much as we're called Tesla whores sometime, it's clearly Tesla's thought about this stuff. They know this stuff a lot better, and they're so far ahead of the game in software and in infrastructure.
I even like the Chevy Bolt's infotainment, actually. I think it's pretty good as far as a standard auto infotainment system goes.
Yeah, you use CarPlay, right?
Well, even without CarPlay, like, I didn't really use it. I just played around with it for a minute, but it seemed nice. It seemed, responsive enough. It's better than the Nissan Leaf's infotainment system is.
Right. And, like, I have to say, like, Android Auto and CarPlay are nice. Like, when you get a text message and you can reply by voice, it's like, that's a little bit better than, what I'm doing in my Model S or Model X. So there's certainly advantages to CarPlay and Android Auto. In fact, I kind of wish Tesla would at least have that as an option. But
they can't do it though, because there's so many car controls and things that are in the that are on the screen that they just and CarPlay takes over the whole screen, so they can't do that. But I wish that they would implement things like your, like you said, text messaging and stuff like that. There's got to be some way that they can make the car work better with Siri or whatever.
Well, what's cool is, well, specifically with Android Auto, I use both Android and CarPlay, but what's nice about Android Auto is you can use it as a standalone device. So you just take your phone, you plop it on some kind of connector to your dashboard, and you hit the Android Auto button, and then you kind of have like an Android Auto screen. So you have the same maps, text message, and now with the Google Assistant, it's a pretty nice like package. And obviously, Google Maps, I don't know how Apple Maps works for you guys, but it's a dumpster fire for me. So I'd rather everything else aside, like I need good maps in a car, I'm going to use Android in my car.
Yeah, that's something that Tesla needs to implement too, like all the app mirroring system, like CarPlay and Android Auto.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to do it securely, is just to have like a sandbox little window or something, or mirror of the display.
Yeah, I think we're gonna call it a show for tonight, everyone. So thanks for tuning in on YouTube Live and whatever your podcast app that you guys use, and we'll see you next week, same time. So thanks everyone. Thanks Jamie. Thanks Seth. Have a good one.
Bye.
Guys.